in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government. Get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist. Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins.
Good evening. I'm Austin Peterson. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Definitely Not Reacting to the GOP debate stream. I'm your host. Glad to have you here. Click like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're joined in studio by the lovely Steffi P for Liberty.
My reactions got lost in an unfortunate voting accident.
Glad to have you here, Stephanie. Thanks so much for joining us on the stream tonight. We've been reacting to some debate clips. We've been watching Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump as well, their interview, which has got, I think they said 74 million views already.
Really?
Unbelievable, yeah.
It's making me laugh. I mean, the toothpick legs.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. He should be a comedian if he's not going to be president again.
Well, he was an entertainer before he was president of the United
You'll
States.
find it.
So
Yes,
you're fine.
yes.
Right. So yes, Donald Trump, very funny. Speaking of very funny, apparently Mike Pence not getting too great a reception at the GOP debate. Let's take a listen to this. Mike Pence getting booed there at the debate. And then I also really enjoyed this moment as well this exchange between Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy.
Climate change policies than they are of actual climate change.
Governor Haley, are you bought and paid for?
Down by
Hold on.
in the last century.
Listen. Hold on.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here. And the last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage tonight.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, Chris Christie's a good debater. That was
funny last
that was
name.
good stuff. The funny last name, Barack Obama. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Christie rises in the polls a little bit from this debate tonight because he is a strong debater. Honestly, yeah,
He's entertaining to me.
he is for sure. We've got about 5 minutes until our next surprise guest comes in. Let's tune back into Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson's conversation and have a listen.
Go into a war, and it would have been a nuclear war.
What? So do you think the rest of the world looks on at Biden and thinks someone else has got to be running the government?
Well, somebody else has to be. I don't think he's capable of doing anything. Look, when I debated him, I said, how come, and this was in front of probably not a friend of yours, Chris Wallace, he was the moderator.
Not a friend.
I said, why is it he wants to be Mike, but he doesn't have the talent? It's one of those
bitchy little man.
He wanted to be his father, but he didn't have the talent. And his father was great. His father,
fussy man.
His father interviewed me in 60 Minutes. It was actually a 10. Can you believe it?
No, I totally believe his father had talent, at least.
I may have been the only guy that he gave a good 60 Minutes to. He was rough.
Really?
His father was tough. He was great, though. He was great at what he did. But Chris Wallace was so upset. He was guarding this guy who wouldn't do a show, by the way. He wouldn't do. I figured I didn't mind Chris Wallace because Biden wouldn't do a show, and it was very obvious. He kept asking him and asking, but he wouldn't do the show. So I figured he's got to like me. But he came from a different planet. But remember when I asked the question, why is it that the mayor of Moscow's wife is allowed to give you $3.5 million? Don't forget, that was brought up. Now it's brought up all the time, but that was brought up by me long before anyone ever heard of it. I said, the mayor of Moscow's wife giving you $3.5 million. What did you do to deserve $3.5 million? To Biden. And Chris Wallace said, this has nothing to do with the debate. I mean, he
got in the way of the question.
No, it was crazy. And I said, well, wait a minute. He got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife. Now, people forget that, but if you go back and take a look, you will see. And Chris Wallace didn't want me to ask that question. I said, I think it's a very appropriate question. It turned out to be much more appropriate than people thought.
Amazing. So do you have a preference in, assuming you're the Republican nominee and all goes as you plan it to go, do you have a preference in who you run against?
In many ways, I'd love to run against him because his record's so bad. It's still horrible when you look at inflation and everything else, but others also have very bad records. I mean, California's a bad record, so, should it be Gavin or should it be somebody else? When I look at San Francisco, what's happened to that incredible city? That was one of the greatest cities in the world just a short while ago, and now it's very sad when you look at
talking
Los
about
Angeles.
that. California was the
practically,
dream state.
All the Democrat-run cities. Republican-run cities are doing very nicely because they arrest people when you have crimes, and they don't go after political candidates because they think it's good. It's been amazing. My poll numbers are the highest I've ever had, but because people understand it.
Can I just ask you, that gets back to my original question. So if the protest didn't work, you got elected anyway. Yeah. Impeachment didn't work twice, obviously. Indictment is not working. Your poll numbers go up when they raided Mar-a-Lago.
We've got to take a quick little break,
year,
just a 2-minute break, because we've got our special guest who's coming in here live right now. I'm going to go get him on the chat. We'll be right back with our special guest to react to the debate. Stick around. 2 minutes or less. We'll be right back.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the 4 olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hayford doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Good evening. I'm Austin Peterson. Thanks so much tuning in to the Definitely Not Reacting to the GOP Debate Live debate reaction show. I'm here joined in studio by the lovely Steffi P for Liberty. Hey, Steffi, good to see you. Well, we promised we were going to bring you some of the best in special guests, and we will absolutely complete that promise. Joining us now live to react to the GOP debate is Ian Howarth. He's joining us right now. Good evening, Ian. How are you, sir?
Good evening. I thought you were going to set me up of like the best is coming right after Ian. So that's very kind of you to not follow through with the obvious one there.
No, we're glad to have you here, Ian. Thanks so much for joining us on the show this evening. All right, so big picture, your take on the GOP debate tonight.
Yeah, so far I think it's kind of nice, honestly. We've actually been talking about some issues. There's been a bit of slapping going on, but it hasn't descended into the bitchy screamingness that we've kind of been expecting to some extent. I think it's overcrowded, obviously. I think we could cut down by 2 or 3 people and have a bit more substance rather than having to give pretty decent percentage to people who clearly will never win, even if they're adding good points. Like, I don't think that's adding any value there.
Like who?
Really, the governors on the end. I think, especially governor of North Dakota, people were joking online, didn't even know who he was until this morning. This is not the purpose of the debate. I think it's always great to hear from people, but the purpose of the debate is really to allow people to make very, very important decisions. And when someone is not going to make it that far, just by really based on many factors, I would rather hear from the people nearer the middle. I'd rather hear more from, say, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, neither of whom I would necessarily support, but I think they deserve more time to actually engage in the debate. What is standing out for me, though, that's really interesting is obviously Trump not being there has been the talking point of the week. It's reminding people of what politics was like before Trump. And that comes with positives and negatives. But that's the most interesting thing for me, to have a conservative discussion. I had to turn it off to join the show right before they started talking about Trump. So for all they know, they're ruining my whole point. But I think up until that stage, at least, they were reminding people of just what politics was like before Trump. And I think that might be good for some people. I think that might be bad for some people, but it's certainly interesting either way.
It's interesting that, all of these people on the stage have all this political experience, except for Vivek Ramaswamy, and he's 38 years old. I mean, do you think he deserves to be up there?
I mean, just by nature of polling. I mean, I don't particularly like the guy. I think he says whatever he needs to say to the audience that's there to get the response. But that's hardly new in the world of politics. So I'm not exactly going to say like he is uniquely wrong in that way. I don't particularly like him and his history. I think the fact he was very, very pro a lot of COVID things and then flipped. I think if we're going to criticize Biden for flipping on a lot of things as needed, I think we should have the same standard for candidates. I think he says a lot of things that sound great, but I think there's a huge difference between sounding smart than necessarily being smart. And I think people need to pump the brakes a little bit with him. If something's too good to be true, they might just be telling you exactly what you want to hear. That's something I was actually kind of impressed with what Nikki Haley said. I'm not a massive Nikki Haley fan. I go back and forth on some of her policies, but she's at least making an effort to try and speak some uncomfortable truths. Like on the topic of abortion, for example, she was pushing the idea that maybe this is not something we can actually be solving on a federal level. People are making promises they can't necessarily keep. The same with criticizing the Republican side of spending. We all love to talk about how Biden blew out spending. The president before him did too. And so I think that's part of politics I would love to see return. People love voting for the person that makes them feel good, though. So I'm not holding my breath.
No, it's true. You're going to do much better in a Republican primary if you say, I will absolutely ban abortion federally by executive order.
Yes. I will ban all the things you happen to hate on day one. Day one's a busy day.
Steffi, do you want to chime in or ask Ian anything? Is there anything that's on your mind that you'd like to talk to Ian about?
It was interesting because when we were talking to Cliff Maloney earlier, he was saying he likes it when there's some candidates that are spreading liberty, the candidates that don't really matter. And so he actually likes hearing the chatter from more of those, less favored candidates. Whereas what Ian is saying is he's saying, maybe those people shouldn't even be there.
Well, because what Cliff Maloney said on our show earlier, Ian, was that, it's good to have Vivek Ramaswamy out there saying things like, I would put Rand Paul at the head of the Federal Reserve, even if we know that something like that's never going to happen. At least they're getting those ideas out there.
Right. So would that get in people's ears and have them start thinking and maybe researching liberty after the debate is over?
You think that there's a positive benefit to having Vivek out there spreading good ideas, at least?
I mean, I don't really want to say positive or negative. I think it's more there are rules to get into the debates. He clearly followed those factors in terms of the number of donors and the support and things like that. And so I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. I think it helps that he's pushing slightly different ideas. But again, a lot of that comes down to whether people are actually going to pick him up on certain things. I want to know if they're going to talk about his involvement in COVID, for example. The fact that he has been certainly in left-wing circles for a lot of his career. And the fact that you are new to politics doesn't necessarily mean you are good. I think, especially on the conservative side, it's always almost like our position is the counter to whatever the other side is doing. So if there's a problem in politics, the solution is the complete opposite of whatever we've had. I think Trump pushed that. Trump did well in a lot of ways and badly in others. I think Vivek is trying to really fill that role and do it again. But when you're just telling people what they want to hear over and over again, my red flags are waving away a little bit. And so that's kind of why I've been pumping the brakes on when people are just really diving into his camp of Vivek's the best, Vivek's the best. It's like, well, is he the best because these are his actual deep seated views and he can actually achieve these things? Or does it just sound good to you? Is it sparking that ticking those conservative boxes? And he knows exactly what to say, right? That's the problem, is that politicians know exactly what their audience wants to hear at any given time. And so you should always pump the brakes when someone's telling you what you want to hear.
That's good stuff.
It's my advice for life.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in to the Definitely Not Reacting to the GOP Debate live stream, I'm Austin Peterson. My lovely wife, Stephanie Peterson, is joining me here in studio. Give her a round of applause and click that like button for Steffi.
Oh, thank you.
And subscribe for Ian Howarth. So let's see if we can have a battle of likes and subscribes between Ian and Steffi. They're both
you want subscribes more? Come on, who are we
no matter what happens, the Jews win for sure. Between the two there,
they always win, Austin. They always win. Just wait long enough.
Hey, thanks a lot for Hawaii, by the way, Ian. Let's talk about the elephant that's not in the room. Donald Trump. I think we saw already 74 million people have already viewed the interview with Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump. There's a huge story there, not just on the Donald Trump angle, but also kind of the death of the mainstream media angle. Do you want to talk about that, Ian?
Yeah, I think I want to take those numbers with a grain of salt, because I think Twitter have a real financial motivation behind upping their numbers, because they're literally monetizing the platform in terms of engagement. And so we don't know whether 74 or whatever it is million people are actively watching or have actively watched, or it's just appeared on people's screens as they scroll down. But regardless, the numbers we've seen on Twitter are huge. Like, even if it's 10% of that, it's a very large number. I think it was a mistake, for example, that Fox News are making it difficult to do reaction videos. They're limiting the amount people can clip, for example. That seems incredibly counterproductive just in terms of a competition standpoint. Like, Trump went out there, whether you like it or not, to kind of get one over on Fox News. Tucker Carlson is doing exactly the same thing. And so if you are Fox News in this world, why would you make it harder for people to actually engage with your content and push back? And so I think it's definitely sparking a change. I think it's not going to die overnight the way people think. I think a lot of these networks are changing. Like, Fox is pushing things like Fox Nation. A lot of other networks are doing similar things. CNN tried CNN Plus, and that went down like a pretty brutal car crash. But they're all trying to do things. I think they're aware of this problem. And so I don't think it's going to be an overnight death, but we're certainly seeing a change and really a shifting of power in terms of you've got individuals who on social media can have just as much clout as a cable news company that's been around for decades.
Is Donald Trump smart not to show up tonight?
I don't think so. I put out a video yesterday kind of explaining that I understand why he didn't. I think it's a rational decision, but I do not believe he's actually doing something smart by not going, because one, he's allowing people to witness, as I said earlier, a world without Trump in conservative space. I think he's making it easy for Biden to skip debates in the future, because Biden does not want to debate, whether it be Trump, DeSantis, anyone. He does not want to be seen in public. Like, the guy can't stay upright. He can't stay awake. He'd rather just mumble no comment, go home and eat ice cream. If we force him to actually debate, I think that can be a way we regain the White House in 2024, if we allow him to run from the basement. If Trump is skipping debates now, it's basically giving them an excuse to say, well, we don't need to debate Nazis. We're way ahead of the polls. We don't have to debate you. And so I think they might do that anyway, but I would rather not give them any excuse they need to not come and actually fight with us. And it's a fight we need to win, because you think things are bad now, just wait for 4 more years of Biden believing he's been proven right. Like, Bidenomics have the support of the American people. And that's what I'm worried about. And I think everyone else should be worried about too.
Sophie?
Yeah. Is there anybody that you're particularly impressed with tonight on the debate stage?
I think So far, I think Nikki Haley stood out for me. I wasn't really expecting much from Nikki Haley. I think DeSantis was okay. I think I was expecting a little more from him. Debates, though, I think are somewhat unimportant. I'd much rather focus on what people have actually done, because I think all politicians are good at standing there and selling you a bill of goods that may or may not arrive and promising you things. But I think I like the fact that Nikki Haley was pushing the idea that federal government doesn't have the solution to everything. Every 4 years, people love to think that the president you vote for is going to solve all your problems. Most problems are local or state in nature, and so the president can't actually fix these things.
Right.
The real key thing, though, for me is I want them to talk about foreign policy. Like, I think a lot of these, let's talk about law enforcement, let's talk about the inner cities, let's talk about drugs. There are some things the president can do, but foreign policy is, I think, a lot more in the power of the executive than really we'd like to think about. And so that's definitely, when I get back to listening to the debate, that's what I'm going to be focusing on, because I want a president who's actually going to put America to the top of the list nationally and internationally, rather than we're tumbling down the rankings because of Biden. And I think that's going to pay dividends in a bad way in the years to come.
Do you think Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden?
So far, no. I think certainly he can do things to change. And obviously, if Trump is the nominee, I'll support him as hard as I can to beat Biden. The problem is I don't see any difference now between what we did in 2020 and what we did in 2024. We have a greater disadvantage because the Democrats are in control of practically everything. So you think it was hard to beat them in 2020 when we were in power. It's going to be even harder when we're not. I think Trump needs to do certain things to win back voters. If you love Trump, you're going to vote for him. And this sucks to hear if you're a Trump fan, but Trump is losing a lot of people as time goes on. I think he needs to be addressing the people that he is losing, not just addressing the people who already love him. If it's all very well having a base, but if people are so turned off by Donald Trump in 2020 that they voted for a dead man, it's going to be even worse in 2024 if 4 years have gone by and nothing's changed.
Do you think Biden will even make it to the next election?
That's one of the topics that Trump and Tucker were talking about tonight, is that Trump doesn't think Biden's going to make it. And I don't know if you saw him in Maui, but it looks like they pulled him out of the coffin and it got him sitting up there. It's really pathetic and borderline elder abuse. Are we staring down the barrel of a Kamala Harris or maybe a Gavin Newsom in the wings?
Oh, I think if Gavin Newsom comes in, we're in trouble. I think the fact is that he is infinitely worse than Joe Biden in many ways. Like, if you look at what he's done to California, if you look at the corruption issues, you look at the 4 families that run California that no one wants to talk about, Gavin Newsom is awful, but he's also sane. He's younger. He can walk upstairs without falling on his face. They're like basic things that people are turned off by when it comes to Biden. And so you've got someone who's much slicker, much smarter, much sharper. That's going to be hugely dangerous when, again, we're not doing anything to address how we beat the Democrats in 2024. Everyone's obsessed with the primary race, which makes sense. It comes first. But the analogy I always use, it's like playing a game of basketball to decide who you're going to play someone at football. It's like the person you choose in the primary race, you need to be choosing on based on, are they the best person for the final match, the final game? And right now, are we doing that? I don't really think so.
That's really good commentary there.
Is there really any candidate that could win against Biden?
Yeah, I mean, I think DeSantis could. What about you, Ian?
Yeah, I think DeSantis could. I don't think Mike Pence could. I don't think Nikki Haley could. Right now, for me, I think DeSantis is the main choice from the remaining who could win. I think Ramaswamy could. Like, he would, be a dark horse for me. But there are people who could do it. I think the problem is that a lot of people hate Trump more than they like anyone else. And I think a lot of people love Trump, but are failing to understand that people simply hate him. Like, they would vote for a can
Trump
of burning
supporters
garbage
just
before
do,
Trump.
Yes, Trump supporters just say they've got those blinders on. They do not realize how much people who are even on the fence, who don't like Joe Biden, are they do not like what we had those 4 years from a perspective. It's funny, we always say that people vote with their pocketbook, but I feel like that's starting to change, that people now are starting to vote more on how a candidate makes them feel, and if it's somebody that they would not just want to have a beer with, but would change their diaper. I don't know, maybe it's a nation is cheap or something like that. Ian, this has been a great interview. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners or plug before we let you go?
Yeah, just please check out my social media, IGHAWORTH. Subscribe to my Substack. That's how I'm trying to keep going with my work. So yeah, thanks as always for having me. It's always great to come on your show.
Ian, thanks for taking your time tonight and joining us. So we appreciate that very much, Ian. We hope to see you on the show again real soon. All right, that's Ian Howarth. What do you think of Ian Howarth? Send us a text. Yeah, I thought that was really good. You want to tune into the debate for another minute?
Sure,
Let's take a listen to what they're saying.
But what they will tell you is that it is time for a new generational conservative leader. We have to look at the fact that 3/4 of Americans don't want a rematch between Trump and Biden. And we have to face the fact that Trump is the most disliked politician in America. We can't win a general election that way. Governor Williams?
There's the Trump people there in the background. He did send some of his surrogates.
Happy to answer the question.
Boy,
Mike
this
Pence
party
did
is
the right thing
divided.
on
Doug
January
Burgum,
6th.
who gives a crap what Doug Burgum has to say?
Standing. It's not over just yet.
Let's go back to what Donald Trump had.
Standing on one leg.
Let's go back to the Donald Trump interview.
They can indict you 20 times, and you're not gonna lose the Republican primary because of that.
Well, so, it makes it look even more ridiculous. I mean, the 4 indictments, and maybe there'll be more. I don't know. These people are crazy.
But they're counterproductive. So if you chart it out, it's an escalation, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So what's next? After, try to put you in prison for the rest of your life, that's not working. So, don't they have to kill you now?
I think the people of our country don't get enough credit for what they
That's kind of a big deal.
Don't they have to kill you now?
Well, yes, actually, like they did Jeffrey Epstein, they're not still kind of blown away that Trump was talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
And I'm not sure I would have said this 10 years ago, but they get it. They really get it. When somebody gets indicted, your poll numbers go down. When somebody gets indicted, you announce, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be leaving to spend time with my family and to fight for the rest of my life on this stuff. But you're out of politics. I got indicted 4 times. All trivia, nonsense, bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's horrible when you look.
There's just Trump cussing. That's kind of a big deal.
You look at what they're
hopefully
doing.
we're not going to get kicked off of Rumble.
The boxes hoax. I'm covered by the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do exactly that. He's not covered, and he's got 25 times the number of boxes. And he's got them stored in Chinatown. He's got them stored in a flimsy garage underneath his Corvette.
What? The Corvette
Penn,
that almost...
And by the way,
Yes,
at Penn, he gets
funny.
millions of dollars.
Maybe the
China
boxes
Pace has
burned
got
out.
millions of dollars. See, I think he's the most corrupt president we've ever had. And he also has the distinction of being the most incompetent. And I believe both. I mean, he's both incompetent and corrupt.
So
and
who
I
is running the
actually
government?
believe he's compromised because China knows so much about him. They know where the money comes from. They know where it is, who paid it, and
China.
they probably paid it. Well, they do pay Penn, and he gets $1 million. I think he takes $999,000 because keeps it a little bit under $1 million, like by $1. But he, in many ways, is a Manchurian candidate. We have a Manchurian candidate, and he's afraid to tell Russia to get out of Cuba. He's afraid to tell China to get out of Cuba. He's afraid. China now is building. Think of this. China is building military installations in Cuba.
He just said Manchurian.
The Cuban population of Miami is not too happy because they're never going to be able to go back.
Kind of.
And you don't even hear about it. And the worst culprit is the press, the media, because normally, when I first heard that China's building installations in Cuba, and installations means military installations, okay, they said just some communication.
I take a quick little break. I just saw that we sold a bag of Jeffersonian Java.
Oh my goodness. Someone's like, I need to stay awake.
Yes, for sure. Talk about our coffee for just a minute, Stephanie. It's time for a brief little break to explain what's fueling the Wake Up America show. Tell us.
Like your use of words.
Tell the audience about our delicious new coffee brand.
Too long ago, we had been conspiring for a while, but we just came out with Founding Flavors Coffee. And so what that is Founding Fathers themed coffee. And so we have light roast, dark roast, medium roast, and they're all based on different Founding Fathers. We have Adam's Patriotic Perk. We have Franklin's Electric Elixir, Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, Jeffersonian Java, and Washington's Revolutionary Roast.
Nice.
Yes. It was hard to remember all those.
And where can people go to get our delicious exclusive coffee?
You can go to apforlibertyshop.com and you can go to our Founding Flavors coffee collections. And don't forget, you can also subscribe so you can get sent the coffee monthly, or what can you get it
Get
every few
addicted
months?
to it, yeah,
whatever.
1, 2, or 3
If you
months,
really
yeah.
like it and you forget to buy it over and over, you can just be reminded and it comes naturally to your house. Or you can also do bundle packages and you can get a discount on coffee if you buy more than one.
If you haven't tried it yet, definitely try it. At least a bag. It's absolutely delicious. It's now my favorite coffee, and I'm a coffee snob. So get it at ap4libertyshop.com. Go get yourself some right now. And we will be back from the break. We're going to go take a P for Liberty break. AP for Liberty, Steffi P for Liberty, IP for Liberty, UP for Liberty.
P for Liberty.
On the Definitely Not GOP debate reaction show live.
Force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hayford doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
And the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism.
Mr. Ramaswamy, 30 seconds. Respond. The real threat we face today is communist China, and we are driving Russia further into China's arms. The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party is talking about it, and I am the only non-neocon on this stage who will keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear Mr. Vice
Mike Pence and Vivek Ramaswamy are debating now over the question of involvement in Ukraine. Mike Pence looks like he's trying to call out Vivek Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy is trying to be more of a to his right, beat him up to his right as a China hawk.
Strength.
Mr. Vice President.
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, here we go. Joining us now live in studio on the Definitely Not React to the GOP debate show is my lovely wife, Steffi P. Hey, Steffi, how we doing?
Getting a little sleepy. This is our bedtime. Past our bedtime.
Way past our bedtime,
we go to
for
sleep
sure.
at 8:30.
Yeah, for sure. So I pulled another clip that somebody sent to me now. Mike Pence talking about how he says he's refused to pardon Trump. Take a listen to this.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me in making a commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage who had the courage to actually say it. That is how we move our nation forward and turn the page forward. That's exactly right.
Trump will be convicted of these crimes.
You should be able to make a commitment. The same justice system that was this corrupt.
Here's the difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a professional politician. That's the difference. Who can answer a question?
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana, it usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted. So, if I'm president of the United States, we'll give fair consideration to any pardon request.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So they were debating over whether or not they would pardon Donald Trump. Vivek Ramaswamy says that he would pardon Trump. Pence says, well, guess what, boy? I've actually been a governor and done pardons, and it usually follows an actual conviction, and then the person is contrite, and then they are pardoned by the governor or the president of the United States. So
Stoned him somewhat.
yeah, he did.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that what Vivek said is going to play well to the Trump base, but for the, for people who who aren't swayed by the cult of personality, I think that they'll listen to what Mike Pence said there and give him a little bit of kudos. There's some good points there for sure.
I mean, I really think Vivek is almost like Trump's stand-in cheerleader.
Yes.
He's like, Trump couldn't be here,
Yeah.
so I'm going to root for him here.
Yeah, he's out there. He's out there playing stalking horse for Donald Trump.
Does
for
that
sure.
normally happen? Where people are cheering for candidates that they
Oh.
could be running against?
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. That they the candidate they think they're going, because you know why? Because they want cabinet spots. They want to get those jobs in the administration when they think that they're going to win. So
I always remember when Ron Paul and Gary Johnson were on the debate stage together at the Republican debate, and they were cheering each other on. They were like liking each other and stuff, probably because they knew they wouldn't actually get in. But
yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
one time when I did see both people like boosting each other up and like, yeah, I'll root for you too.
Yeah, looks like I got a little bit of good news here. Now, you probably don't know who this is, but a little bit of surprise guest for the Wake Up America show tomorrow morning. Excuse me. The AK gun guy, Brandon Herrera, is going to be joining me on the Wake Up America show tomorrow morning. He's got a huge following. Brandon, he's a really good guy, very pro Second Amendment guy. He's run for Congress in Texas. He's going to be joining us tomorrow morning live on the Wake Up America show right here. The stream that you're watching right now is normally set for the Wake Up America show. And so tomorrow morning, if you want to watch Brandon Herrera, the AK gun guy, he's going to be joining me live tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Central Time. Going to be a great show, so you don't want to miss it. So that's some great news.
Booking your show while you're doing another show?
I am booking my show.
This guy. He works so hard.
I know, for sure.
He's making his other show while he's talking.
Yep.
He multitasks.
You got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Let's head back over the debate for a minute.
Friendship. And you know what friends do? Friends help each other stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0.
The 2
I will
feet.
partner with Israel to make sure Iran
his
never
2 feet.
is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles me is, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel
that is
needs
the answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay,
They
Governor
are the
DeSantis,
Jesus.
you were mentioned in the territorial dispute. Not only...
No, it's
we're
not a
gonna get into
territorial
it.
dispute
President
either.
of the United States.
We're going to get it.
Need Israel?
Yeah.
Jewish.
You're asking a very good question, Stephanie. Let's ask the chat. Do we need Israel? I think we're going to get a bunch of interesting...
The Middle East, so like...
To a large extent, right? For sure.
Israel helping us with that.
Do we need Israel? That's a really good question. To carry out our foreign policy as it is right now, the answer is yes.
Okay.
At the end of the day, Israel probably needs us a lot more than we need Israel.
You would think so?
Yeah. Yeah. This is like their time for everybody to like kiss their ass because, listen, I love the Jewish people and I think that Israel is a great country and I'm glad that there's another liberal democracy in the Middle East and all that. But I don't think that we need to be sending foreign aid to Israel. Now, if I were president of the United States, I would cut off all foreign aid to every single country but Israel last, right? Would be the last country that I would cut off aid to because I do think that there's a national security benefit to us having a friend in the Middle East because all the other countries around that region do hate us.
They're not our friends.
They're not our friends, right? Yeah. But like you said, you wrote an article.
I did.
About the aid that we send to Israel. You got to tell this story to the camera. Tell our listeners
I wish
about
I
this
could
story.
actually call it up.
And that's okay.
So
you know
in the Jewish newspaper locally in Michigan, there was an article written about him in 2012 about Ron Paul and how they were calling him an isolationist. And they were saying he's not a friend of Israel, don't vote for him, we don't like him, blah, blah, blah. So that made me really upset because I was a huge Ron Paul fan. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write a letter to the editor of the Jewish newspaper. And so I'm sitting there writing my article about how Ron Paul, he's not an isolationist. He's actually a non-interventionist. That is different than isolationism. And I also said that Netanyahu said he doesn't want our help. He actually said that in a quote. He's like, we can do this ourselves. And Ron Paul said that. He's like, Netanyahu doesn't want us there. So why should we be there? So I was sticking up for Ron Paul. I don't know if I convinced any Jewish people with my article, but
probably not.
I cut it out and I have it all nicely laminated and stuff.
Yeah, for the like, if you're not like kissing like Jewish ass at every 2 seconds, then you're not a friend of the Jews. And giving them all of your money at all times, like give them your gold coins immediately, or you're an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
I said to my Jewish wife, I'm immune from being anti-Semitic because of my Jewish wife. So.
That's right. We've got gold.
Can't possibly be a Nazi.
Yes.
All right, let's. I've got a clip here of Vivek Ramaswamy talking about whether or not he would give more funds for the war in Ukraine. Take a listen.
Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine.
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's
That's where the GOP base
when
is
we
right
should
now.
use
Good.
those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face.
Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase.
There it is, right there. So, yeah.
I'm afraid of Russia. I'm afraid of China.
Yeah, no, I think that I think he's right on there. I know a lot of libertarians are concerned that Vivek is too much of a China hawk, but I think that that's probably smart. I mean, like, China did unleash this pandemic on us, and I do think that we definitely should be keeping an eye on them more than we should be getting involved in between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, Vivek does not like China. I was reading all of his views, and it said that he literally does not want America to do business with China.
Yeah, now that I think we would take issue with, of course, as free marketeers. But he makes a good point, and I'm glad that he's brave enough to say it. All right, let's take a break from the GOP debate for a couple of minutes and head back over to hear Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump talking.
Did that on the islands with Japan. They took the island, they started this massive construction, and they told everybody, including the Japanese. The Japanese have to be very careful. They told everybody that this is a housing development. They're going to build a housing development. And I said, how come the runway is 20,000 feet long? Private jets need 4,000 feet. They don't need 20,000 feet. The big ones need 20,000 feet. They don't even need 20. And I looked at the runway. I said, that's the largest runway ever built, both in width and length, for housing development. There's nobody that has a plane that big that you would have a runway that's
Why
that's
is
for
China
testing.
allowed to conduct imperialism in our hemisphere?
Well, yeah, and it's far beyond Cuba. It's all over South America.
Yeah, in the Caribbean.
So we built a thing called the Panama Canal. We lost 35,000 people to the mosquito, malaria.
Yeah.
We lost 35,000 people building. We lost 35,000 people because of the mosquito. Vicious. They had to build under nets. It was one of the true great wonders of the world. As he said, one of the 9 wonders of the world. No, it was one of the 7. It happened a little while ago, It says 9 wonders of the world. You could make 9 wonders. He would have been.
Little Peterson family side note. So my dad said that his father, my grandpa, always hated the senator from Missouri who was Josh Hawley's benefactor, John Danforth.
Oh, I've heard that name.
Because John Danforth was the one who helped negotiate giving the Panama Canal back to Panama. So, that was always something that my grandpa hated John Danforth of Missouri for that, for the Panama Canal. After all we did to build it and to make it happen. Yeah. So, anyways, the GOP, we are not live reacting to the GOP, definitely not reacting to the GOP debate live tonight. Looks like they're having a little break right now, so we can take a little break too. All right, it's time for us. I think, Stephanie, it's time for us to say goodbye. Actually, we've had a good show. I know the debate is still going on, but we actually have a whole other show that we've got to do tomorrow morning. So we've got to go get a little bit of sleep and get ourselves up early because we don't have a crew to produce our show for us. We do our debate.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, Camelia will be in studio. She has a very late night. She's
like driving all the way from
now.
St. Louis. Yes.
Yeah, so she probably will need some Founding Flavors coffee.
Yeah, for sure. We will have some Founding Flavors ready for her in the morning, and we will be right here back bright and early in the morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. So if it's your first time watching the show, make sure that you subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on so you can come back and watch us bright and early tomorrow morning, 5 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for tuning in to the stream tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow morning with the Wake Up America show. Bye, Steph.
Bye-bye.
Say goodbye, Steffi. Click like for Steffi. Bye, guys. See you in the morning.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Dee-Dee's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so